Get underway. Again, this is Connor Jordan with Competitive Solutions, and our speaker today is Seth Davies. He's our managing partner, and he'll be delivering a live session today on communication, the just right structure to bring an end to ineffective meetings. Thanks a lot for joining us, and thanks, Seth. Take it away.
Thanks, Connor. Let me add my welcome to everyone that has joined us on this webinar on communication. Connor had mentioned at the outset that we're going to do some polls today. We're not going to do a poll on this one, on this particular question, but if I were to ask each of you what is one of the top 2 issues in your organization, I know that communication would be one of the 2 because that's what I typically see. That's what my firm sees in many of the organizations that we work with, lack of communication, which breeds a culture of lack of trust with that. And I'm always amazed at organizations that they think they're doing a good job of communicating, but then the employee surveys come out and show communication isn't so well around here. Folks, email is not a valid form of communication. When I talk about communication, I'm talking about face-to-face, two-way communication where you come together on a weekly business or weekly schedule to talk about the business. And that's what I'm going to share with you today is we're going to talk about meetings. And by the way, I have learned people don't mind going to meetings if they're outcome-driven and action-focused. And I'm going to share with you some tools on how you can have more effective meetings, which in turn will have more effective communication. I'm going to show you processes around that to improve communication within your organization. I came across some statistics recently, and I want to share with you. 47% of employees said that they spend too many meetings. They're in too many meetings, and it's just a time waster for them. Second point there, once the meeting gets off task or off of the agenda, it takes 25 minutes to come back around to it. And then look at that fourth statistic down there. Unnecessary meetings cost about $37 billion a year. One of the things that we do here at Competitive Solutions is we're asked by companies to come in and attend their meetings and audit their meetings. What's working well, what's not working well, give them feedback on and recommendations on things they can start doing differently around that. I'm going to share with you what I've learned over the 17 years I've been doing this, things that can help you have more effective meetings so that your meetings can go from an hour down to 30 minutes and you're getting a whole lot more accomplished in that 30 minutes with that. Connor had mentioned the polls. Connor, if you would launch our first poll today, I'd just like to get some feedback on how you would describe yourself.
All right, we'll go about 10 more seconds and then share the results for you. All right, and here are the results. Looks like the top answer at 43% is that people are frequently interrupted by unnecessary meetings.
Great, thanks, Connor. Folks, what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk a little bit about what I see in organizations that's broken when it comes to their meetings. We're going to talk about how those lead to ineffective meetings, but we're going to spend the majority of our time up until 1:30 talking about what's the right structure for effective meetings. What do you have to put in place to have effective meetings? And the key word for me in there, in that last bullet point, is the word process, because we're going to talk about processes to drive consistency across the organization when it comes to meetings and when it comes to communication with that. So let's talk about what's broken. What are the 3 common forms that we see? One, we see little structure, and then we're going to talk about structure overload, and then we're going to talk about the incorrect structure with that. No or little structure. Some examples of that I see. Lacking agenda. People showing up to a meeting, they get a meeting invite, they show up, there's not an agenda, they're not prepared, they don't know what to talk about. It doesn't start on time, and it certainly doesn't end on time with that. That fourth bullet point down there, no scorecard to focus the discussion. At the end of the day, the only thing you have in common with the people you work with is the business, your place of employment. And that needs to be the focal point of our discussions when it comes to talking about or having a meeting and talking about the business. Is a scorecard tells us if we're winning or losing. It tells us, are we doing the right behaviors to help our organization be successful? So that needs to be the focal point of the meeting. And many times that scorecard is absent from the meeting. And then the last one, that it drives people crazy, but when you go around the table and you give status updates on activities and priorities, when it's non-value added, what people don't care what you're working on. What people want to know is, what have you completed? What was on your plate, and what have you completed? What actions have you done? And we're going to talk about actions in a little bit. Next one is about structure overload. You got too many meetings. I was with a vice president a couple weeks ago, and it was a Monday morning, and he showed me his Outlook calendar for the week. He had 25 hours of meetings scheduled for that week. More than half of the work week was going to be spent in meetings. And he said, really, of those 25 hours, about 7 hours were really relevant. The meetings were relevant to he and his role within the organization. We're going to talk about too much status reporting of ongoing projects, and then also too many printed materials in there. What I like to see when it comes to printed materials, I want to see the printed materials sent out in advance, 48 hours in advance, so people have the opportunity to review the information in advance. I don't want to see, and I see it many times, is where people pass the report around the table and then they read it word for word. Bring to the meeting 5, 6, 7 key bullet points about your report, and let people have the ability to ask questions because they've already looked at them. So what's the third piece that I see when it comes to meetings? Incorrect structure. You may have an agenda, but it's outdated. It's not relevant. Every 60 days, you need to look at your agenda to say, are these still relevant to our organization, these topics here? No rotation of meeting roles. In a few minutes, I'm going to talk about the 4 critical meeting roles within the organization, and they need to rotate every 30 to 60 days. I want to see those 4 meeting roles rotating amongst members of the team. No audit of meeting processes. Where do you typically talk about how bad a meeting is? It never happens inside of the meeting. It always happens as you're walking down the hall, at lunch, at the coffee pot, the water cooler. That's how we talk about how unproductive, how boring that meeting is. I'm going to share with you a tool at the end, how you can start having better meetings because you're talking about them within the meeting. And then bad day or time to hold the meeting. I have found that meetings at the end of the day at 4 o'clock, 4:30, that's not a good time because you got people that are thinking about getting their kids to practice, thinking about activities, thinking about what's going to be for dinner. I have found the window for effective meetings is between 9:30 and 2:30 in organizations, is when people are prepared, when they're focused, and able to have meaningful meetings within their organization. Connor, if you would launch our second poll of the day, please.
All right, about 10 more seconds. All right, and here are the results. The top answer is at 42%, incorrectly structured.
All right, well, I hopefully going forward I can give you the right structure so you can have meaningful meetings that advance the business forward. I'm going to use the term non-negotiable several times during our remaining time today. Non-negotiable, from my definition, is this is how we do it. This is going to be our meeting structure. We're going to set up non-negotiable processes for meetings within your organization to drive that consistency. So whether you're in IT or you're in finance or HR, operations, what have you, it's the same meeting structure throughout. So you've got that established rhythm. You've got that consistency in the organization. You've got those standard tools and processes for everyone to follow within your organization. So here are some of the things I'm going to talk about going forward. One, we're going to talk about establishing ground rules. I know that sounds simplistic, but absolutely is effective for your organization when you've got ground rules established. I'm going to talk about the 4 meeting roles. I'm going to talk about having standard meeting agendas within your organization. And I'm going to talk about the meeting audit process. And it goes back to what I said before about where do we typically talk about how bad a meeting is. We talk about it after the meeting, outside of the meeting room. So let's talk about ground rules. What are some ground rules I believe you should have within your organization? One, well, I think it should be people need to arrive on time. If the meeting's at 2 o'clock, that doesn't mean you come in at 2 o'clock and you sit down. That means you're arriving 156, 158, and you're ready and you're prepared to do it. Company that I worked with last year, they had a problem with people not arriving on time. And after 4 weeks of doing the meeting audit process, the decision was made that at 2 o'clock, that conference room door was locked. You're either in or you're out. And let me tell you, after the first week of people being locked out, nobody was late ever again. It changed the culture because people talked about an ineffective meeting, and they made a decision they weren't going to tolerate it anymore. Next one is come prepared. And what I mean by coming prepared is you've read that report in advance. You've looked at your scorecard in advance, and you've got answers for why a metric is red. You've looked at the action register. We're going to talk about action register in a minute. But you've looked at the action register to ensure that the actions that you were responsible for and that had a target date of today, that you've completed them on time. So it's coming prepared to the meeting. Next one, every company struggles with this. People coming into a meeting, they're sitting down, they're pulling out their phones, and underneath the table they're texting, they're emailing, they're playing Angry Birds, doing various things, as if no one really knows what they were doing. Company in Knoxville, Tennessee said enough is enough, and they made the decision after utilizing the meeting audit that cell phones were not going to be allowed in that meeting room. And so there's now a wicker basket on the receptionist desk outside the conference room where when people arrive, they drop their cell phones in there and they leave them. And initially that idea had a lot of resistance, but what people learned is, our meetings have never been as effective as they are now because we've got people that are focused on the topic and the agenda, not focused on email and other things with that. One speaker at a time. What I'm talking about here is eliminate the sidebar discussions where two people are having a discussion. One speaker at a time. Let's be respectful. Let's be focused on the agenda and the topic at hand. And then participation is not optional for your team, your group. If you can't attend because you're sick, you're on vacation, something else has come up, send a delegate, send a member of your team to that meeting that can answer the questions that they're going to be asked about what's going on with your business unit with that. Let's talk next about the meeting roles. I believe there's 4 meeting roles within a team. First is the meeting facilitator. And again, these rotate every 30 to 60 days. But the facilitator's job is to make sure the meeting starts on time, that the agenda, that we stick to the agenda. We don't allow discussions to go down the wrong road in terms of hijacking our meeting and taking that 25 minutes I referenced earlier to get back on track with that. The next one is the action register keeper. And again, in a minute, I'm going to talk to you about the action register and how to use that. But someone is designated as the action register person to document critical assignments and tasks. Because how many times have you been sitting in a meeting and you're sitting there thinking to yourself, well, 4 weeks ago, Ken said he was going to do this. 3 weeks ago, Ken said he was going to do it. 2 weeks ago, and here it is. Again, Ken says he's going to do it, and I know what's going to happen. Next week, he'll say it again. Talk about something one time, put it on the action register with a target date and assigned ownership, and move on. That's what people want, is the outcome-driven type meetings where people are getting things done. The next meeting role, pass up, pass down. We're going to come back around to this, but this is a key role in improving communication within your organization, is the pass up, pass down keeper. And then the 4th meeting role is the participant. And again, the participants, they're prepared, they show up on time, they're able to contribute and provide meaningful dialogue around business results and other things that happen within their team. So let's move on now, talk about a standard meeting agenda. And what I'm about to share with you is a meeting agenda that I teach in the organizations that I work with that want to improve communication, want to improve their meetings. It's a very simple agenda here covering the topics. So this becomes the non-negotiable. You determine what are the agenda topics we want every team, every work group to talk about. The teams can certainly add agenda items, but what they cannot do is take agenda items off. So as we go through this, you'll see what are the key components of effective meeting agendas. First one's the action register. Let me give you a little definition around what the action register is. The action register is a tool designed to document critical tasks, ownership, responsibilities. You've got someone designated as the action keeper. And as that meeting's taking place and you hear terms such as, I will, someone should, let's do this, those are action terms. Those are people saying they're going to do something. The action keeper captures it, puts it down there. Then the next column, and by the way, my rule of thumb on the actions is I want to be able to go back a year from now and know exactly what that action is. So I want their clarity around that. I don't want an action that says check with IT, because a year from now, people aren't going to know what that means. I want the action to say check with IT about the new laptops being released for our new employees. I want it as specific as possible. So if it takes half a page, I'm okay with that. Next one is the owner. Only one person can be an owner of an action. You can't have multiple people. You can't have April, Andrea, and Bill on there, because what will happen is they'll all think the other person is going to do it. One person is the owner of an action. Next one's the target date. When does that action need to be completed by? For many actions, which will take 30 to 60 minutes to complete, the target date's a week from now. A week from our next meeting is a week from now. That's when it's due. Other actions maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks out into the future. But let's put a target date on there. When was that action completed by? And then the comments field. And next month, I'm going to be doing a webinar on employee performance reviews, employee appraisals. And this tool right here, the action register, is going to become a performance management tool for us. It's going to provide data about the level of engagement of people of your team. But that's what an action register is. Let's talk about something one time. Let's put it on the action register, and let's move on. And let me share with you, this is an example of an action register. You'll see the first column, what's the actions? What is someone doing? What does it apply to? Apply to metrics on our scorecard. We're going to talk about scorecards next. And then who's the responsible person? And then the target date, when was it due? It's a very powerful tool when you integrate your scorecard and your action register into a software product, and this is our software product, PBL Scorecard, that our client companies utilize to manage their scorecard and manage their meetings, their actions with that. Next thing we're going to talk about is our scorecard review. This is going to be about 15 to 17 minutes of our meeting is going to be the scorecard review, talking about how are we performing as a team. Any metric that is red, you've got to come up with a corrective action plan that says here's what we're doing differently as a result of that. And it's very visual, so within 5 to 7 seconds, that team knows if they're winning or losing. But they're going to talk about the scorecard, talk about how they're doing, talk about what are the behaviors we need to do differently next week. What are the actions we need to put down on our action register to try to turn that metric from red into green. But that scorecard is our roadmap. That scorecard tells us how we're performing against stated goals and objectives, and what do we need to do differently to improve business results with the team. Next one is the engagement piece, the around the table. A couple words of caution on around the table. One, you need to give people a time limit when it comes to around the table, because what takes me 45 seconds to say is it may take Connor 5 minutes to say. But if Connor knows he's got a time limit of 45 seconds and he wants to bring something up, an issue, a question, a concern to the team at the around the table piece, if he knows he's got a time limit, he'll come prepared with bullet points so that he can articulate his thing, his issue or concern. Here's a second word of caution. Around the table is the one place where your meeting can get off track. So what I like to see is a discussion for 1 to 2 minutes when an issue or an item comes up of concern, and it may get resolved in a very quick discussion. What I don't want is I don't want 2 people having a discussion for the next 5 minutes, monopolizing the time of the other team members. So after 2 minutes, the facilitator needs to say, what's the action here? What's the action as a result of it? And it may mean Connor and Mike having a discussion afterwards in the hallway, or it may mean having another meeting. But let's capture that action and move on. Next piece is the recognition piece. If you've been on these webinars before, you know I'm a very strong proponent of recognition, because I see, frankly, I don't see cultures of recognition in many companies. What I see is when things aren't going so well, people running out and giving feedback. What I want to see is I want to see recognition for job well done, for people going above and beyond what they're being asked to do. And by putting it on our agenda, it becomes a mental trigger. And that may have been a train wreck of the week, nothing good happened, so we're not going to recognize anyone. Or we may say, you know what, I want to recognize Kathy, because last Friday night when the power went out, Kathy stayed here till 10 o'clock at night, ensuring our servers got up and running again. So that when we came in Monday morning, everyone was able to work. So I want to recognize Kathy for that. What people are looking for is the intangible, informal type of recognition. The pat on the back, the handshake that says, thank you very much. We talked about what you did to help our business. That's what people are looking for when it comes to recognition. So put it on your agenda and start building that culture of recognition within your organization. Next item, Pass up, pass down. Remember, this is one of the meeting roles, is the pass up, pass down person. My definition of pass up, pass down is a bulletized briefing of key business information. What do we want everyone in our organization to know the next 7 days? And let me walk you through how this works in many organizations that I work with. Monday morning at 9 a.m., the senior leadership team comes together. They follow that meeting agenda I'm walking you through right now. And as that meeting is going on, you will hear things such as, this is a pass-down item. So a pass-down item comes from the IT department. We are upgrading our servers this coming weekend. When you come in next Monday, if you're not able to log on to the network, don't call the help desk and issue a trouble ticket. Reboot your computer. Meeting continues, and then there may be a pass-down from the Human Resource Department. If you want to make changes to your 401k, please see your HR representative between now and December the 15th. So that meeting continues when that meeting's over with, and that meeting takes about 45 minutes. Then at level 2, the folks at that level, at 11 a.m., they come together and they meet. They follow that same meeting agenda. They may have added one item to that meeting agenda, such as special projects. But as that meeting's going on, when they get to the pass up, pass down, guess what happens? The pass up, pass down is shared at level 2. And the process just replicates itself. I call it a waterfall. Other companies call it their communication rhythm. But it just goes down. Level 3 is at 1, level 4, and finally level 5. So within 24 hours, everyone in your organization has heard the same clear, consistent message about the business, about what's going on, and so now they're equipped to go out and perform their job. One of the pass downs that I saw recently at a pharmaceutical company was the the country of Australia, their health department was coming in to conduct an audit. That was a pass down throughout the entire organization, so everyone knew what was happening in the coming week when they saw a bunch of strangers walking around the site. Second to last thing you're going to do on your meeting agenda, the action register review 2. What we're going to review here are the 3, the 4, the 5 actions that just were captured during our time together. So this is where the action keeper will take the action register and say, okay, we talked about somebody checking with IT about the new laptops and when they would be released for our employees. We're going to assign that responsibility to Ann. The next action is we're going to check with Human Resources about the new benefits plan, and we're going to assign that to John. Target dates, make sure people understand what they've got to do. Remove ignorance as an excuse. Get that verbal affirmation that John knows what he needs to do. And then the final piece around this, the meeting audit. Let's talk about how successful our meeting was in the meeting. And let's ask the questions, did this meeting advance the business? Thumbs up, yes, I thought it was a good meeting, or thumbs down, no, it wasn't a good meeting. And if you give a thumbs down, you got to talk about it. And go back to my examples earlier today about starting your meeting on time. One company, after 4 weeks of the meeting audit process, said, tired of people showing up late, being disruptive. Conference room doors locked it at 2. Another company said we had too many cell phones, too many distractions in our meeting room. They banned them from their meetings. By talking about it, it changed the behavior, it changed the culture of the organization. It's been very valuable and beneficial to talk about your meetings, and it takes about 2 minutes to go around the table. Did this meeting advance the business? I'm going to pause now, Connor. If you would launch our third and final poll of the day, please.
All right, about 10 more seconds for you. Okay. All right, Seth, it looks like a pretty good mix with the #1 answer being using an action register for follow-through pertaining to, after and outside of your meetings.
Good, good. I hope the action register will be valuable and beneficial for you. So let's talk a couple more things before we wrap up. Let's talk about outside the meetings and talk about that meetings waterfall that I showed you. put together a list of all your standard meetings so people know what time different work groups are coming together on a weekly basis to talk about the business. You've utilized tools across the organization. Every team has a scorecard. Every team utilizes an action register. So if I attend a meeting over in finance, I know what the action register is. I can speak their language when it comes to the scorecard. Connect people with that pass up, pass down. If you are tired of having communication as one of your top issues in your organization, put in place a pass up, pass down process. I got a phone call earlier this summer from a gentleman at a company I just started working with, and he had a lot of angst and anxiety in his voice, and that he said, Seth, there are people in suits that are walking around our office. Nobody seems to know what's going on. Are we up for sale? Is there something that you know? Of course, I didn't know who the people in the suits were, but it turns out that 48 hours later, it was revealed that was a new customer that sales and marketing was touring through the facility, but that hadn't been shared with anyone. A simple pass down to the organization that there's going to be strangers in our facility, that they are a new customer, that would have alleviated a lot of angst and anxiety within the organization. External audits, talking about how are we performing within the meeting, but then also going out and auditing the pass up and pass down process and asking people, pulling people aside and say, hey, tell me one of the pass downs for this week. 9 times out of 10, people are going to say there were 3 pass downs, and here's what the 3 pass downs were for the week. Every once in a while, what may happen is someone will say, I don't know what you're talking about. The next question from the leader is, did you attend or did you have your weekly meeting? And the final, and if they say, no, we haven't had one in about 3 months, the final question should be, who's your boss? Because now you know where that communication breakdown is happening within your organization. So let's tie this all together and talk about true communication. When does it occur? When you communicate, when you have face-to-face communication. And I get asked all the time, well, what about virtual teams? Doesn't matter. You can still do this process with virtual teams. Have a standard meeting time. Use GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, WebEx somehow. Have the action register visible. Have the scorecard visible so that everyone can see. You can still email things back and forth, but again, that relies on someone to look at it. Standard processes. I talked about several non-negotiable standard processes when it comes to communication, when it comes to meetings within your organization. You've got agendas. You've got defined ground rules. You're using the action register, the scorecard. You've got that pass up, pass down process, information flowing, and then you're continually auditing the processes. You're asking the questions about what's the pass downs for the week. Did this meeting advance the business around that? Connor, I want to pause. It looks like I got about 2 minutes left. I want to see if we had any questions come in.
Absolutely, as always, lots of good questions. We have time for 1 or 2 here, and the others will answer by email or phone in the next couple of days. As the poll indicated, the action register seems to be a pretty popular item, and we had some questions about that. One really good question was, how many actions do you expect to see on an action register in a meeting?
Yeah, as this process starts and evolves within your organization, I think you'll see a lot of things, and I say a lot, 15 to 20 things that within your meeting go on the action register. But what I've seen over time as teams evolve, as they mature with the meeting process and utilizing the action register, what really goes on the action register are the critical key strategic things that need to happen, because we don't want to lose sight of those, and people are able to discern what really needs to go on that action register and what is something that I can take care of myself. How about one more, Connor?
Sure. You spent a lot of time, of course, on explaining the pass-down process, and somebody asked if you could clarify and explain, what exactly is a pass-up.
Yeah, thanks for that question. That was an area that I didn't, I forgot to mention with how that works. The pass down, you've got information flowing from the top down. What a pass up is if a team has a question about something, they've got the ability to pass it up within the organization. I saw this recently. That company I was talking about with the pharmaceutical company and the audit coming. There was a question from members on the second shift, and they were asking if the audit was going to be conducted on second shift or only on first shift. So that was passed up. The answer was received and was passed back down. So the pass up, pass down is just that two-way flow of information, top down, bottom up within the organization. Folks, I hope I've given you some valuable and beneficial tools for you to utilize going forward within your organization to improve communication, to improve your meetings. Connor's going to launch an exit survey. If anybody wants the meetings waterfall template that I referenced, be sure to let us know that. Next month, I'm going to talk about the employee review process, and a lot of what I talked about around accountability and that action is going to be incorporated into that. Thank you, everyone, for your time. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving holiday, and look forward to speaking with you next month in December. Bye-bye.
All right, and as Seth mentioned, as you leave the webinar, the survey will launch for you. It's just 5 or 6 quick questions, and they kind of help us continually understand and improve, you know, what we're doing here with the webinar. So thanks again for joining us, and we will see you next month.